I still remember the sting of that night in Riverton as clearly as if the cold had carved it into my bones. Winter had swallowed Illinois whole, the kind of sharp, metallic cold that makes your breath feel like broken glass. I was standing on a ladder outside my parents' two-story house, looping Christmas lights along the gutters just like I'd done every year since I was 12. Except this time, I wasn't a kid coming home for the holidays. I was the woman who had spent months remodeling this entire place from roof to flooring, from the broken HVAC system to the outdated kitchen, using my own money, my own crew, and every spare hour I had after running steel oak construction. I thought I was helping my family. I thought it meant something to them. But the truth came at me through a half-open window I didn't even realize was cracked. Inside, I heard Chloe's voice, sharp, annoyed, the way she always sounded when she talked about me. "I swear, Mom, I don't want to spend Christmas with that loser. She's such a drag. Why do we have to pretend?" I froze. My hand went numb around the light string. Then my mother's voice floated up, calm and casual, like this wasn't about her own daughter. "Just put up with her a little longer. Once she finishes paying for all the remodel work, we can finally distance ourselves." I stopped breathing. They weren't whispering. They weren't careful. They weren't worried I'd hear. To them, I wasn't standing outside risking frostbite to make their house glow for Christmas. I wasn't the daughter who answered every late-night call when something in the house broke. I wasn't the one who pulled out my savings to make this place livable again. To them, I was a transaction. A bridge they were planning to burn as soon as the last bill was paid. I stood there, gripping the ladder, feeling the December wind cut across my face. For a moment, I didn't know if the shaking inside me was because of the cold or because something deep and painful was cracking open. I tried to tell myself I'd misheard, that maybe they were talking about someone else. But then I heard Chloe laugh, a short, mean little laugh that punched me straight in the chest. Good, because once she's out of our hair, I'm done pretending we're close. I mean, I already told Mark we're not inviting her to the baby shower. Their voices drifted on, planning a holiday that apparently didn't include me, planning a life that definitely didn't include me. My father's name never came up. He was probably in his cafe prepping holiday orders, clueless that the two women he trusted most were carving the family apart like a roast. My throat tightened so hard I could barely swallow. I looked at the glowing strand of lights hanging from my hand, something meant to bring warmth, beauty, nostalgia, and suddenly it felt foolish, childish, like I'd been decorating a stage for a play I was never meant to be in. In that moment, standing on that ladder in the freezing dark, I felt something subtle but final shift inside me. A door closing, a chapter ending. A quiet acknowledgement that the family I'd been trying to hold on to wasn't mine anymore, and maybe never had been. And the worst part wasn't what they said. It was realizing how easy it was for them to say it. I didn't go home after hearing them talk about me like that. I couldn't. My hands were still shaking when I got into my truck, but I didn't feel the cold anymore. I felt something sharper, cleaner, like the moment before a blade hits wood and the cut becomes inevitable. I drove straight to my office. Steel oak construction was dark except for the soft glow of the security lights, but being there steadied me. This was the one place in my life where every bolt, every invoice, every blueprint followed rules. Logic, order. Nothing like the chaos happening inside my family's house. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up every receipt, every expense I'd logged for the remodel. Roof reinforcement, HVAC replacement, custom cabinets, flooring, electrical rewiring. The numbers stared back at me, cold and honest. $52,416, all mine. Every cent. There was no contract, no repayment plan, not even a text that said, "Thanks." I leaned back, pressing my palms into my eyes. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. The kind you get when you finally stop hoping for people to be who they've already shown you they aren't. I opened my parents' shared financial statements, something Dad had asked me to help monitor after a phishing scam last year. I hadn't checked them in months. Now, I wished I'd looked sooner. There it was. a transfer of $15,000. The memo line read, Crestline Partners Consulting Fee. I frowned. Crestline Partners wasn't a consulting firm. It wasn't anything. I knew because I looked it up, and it led to a single P.O. box in Chicago and a phone number registered to a man named Paul Jensen, who just happened to be my mother's friend from the gym. Suddenly, the late-night errands, the unexplained weekend trips, the crisp new blazer she claimed was on sale, it all snapped into place. My mother wasn't just planning to cut ties with me. She was preparing a life without my father in it. I clicked into another folder, emails my mother had forwarded to Chloe, legal templates, estate restructuring documents, notes scribbled about removing risk factors. One draft even spelled it out in plain language. Talk to Mark about adjusting Dad's will before Emma complicates things. Complicates things. That was me. The inconvenience. The obstacle to whatever future they were building behind closed doors. I exhaled slowly, letting the betrayal sink in. Not to hurt me, but to sharpen me. I started downloading copies of everything. Emails, transfers, drafts, screenshots. I organized them like case files. It felt mechanical, almost surgical, as if I were stripping away rotten drywall to expose mold underneath. But I knew I needed more. Words spoken in private carried a weight that screens couldn't capture. So the next morning, when I returned to the house under the guise of dropping off tools, I hid 3 small recording devices, one behind the spice rack, one under the dining room sideboard, and one tucked in the entryway vent. Not to take them to court. Not yet. But because people show their truest faces when they think no one is watching. That night, sitting in my truck outside their house, I turned on the live feed. Voices drifted through the static, Chloe whining, my mother snapping, Mark giving instructions in his cold lawyer tone, and when my mother said, "She'll finish paying for the remodel this month. After that, she's out of our lives for good." I didn't feel shock. I felt clarity. For the first time in my life, I finally understood who they were, and who I would have to become to stop them. 2 weeks of recordings didn't numb me. They sharpened me. Every night I sat in my truck outside the house, listening through earbuds as my mother, my sister, and Mark plotted like the walls were their accomplices. They weren't even subtle anymore. They talked about the house being appraised once renovations were complete. They debated how to position my contributions so it would look like I'd already received an advance inheritance. At one point, Chloe even said, "She's so desperate to feel included, she'll never see it coming." I saw all of it coming now, so I hired someone who actually valued the work I did. Naomi Brooks, a construction attorney with the quiet confidence of a woman who'd seen every tactic in the book and shredded most of them. We met in her small office downtown, warm light bouncing off stacks of case files. She listened without interrupting as I laid everything out. Emails, financial transfers, screenshots, and yes, the transcripts. When I finished, Naomi leaned back, tapping her pen on her notebook. "You've done half my job already," she said. "We'll file a mechanic's lien first thing tomorrow. That prevents any sale, refinancing, or transfer of ownership until you're fully compensated." I exhaled for the first time in days. "And what about the recordings?" She smiled. "You're not using the audio in court, but the transcripts?" She slid a folder toward me. "Those go in the letter I'll send to your mother and sister, not as evidence, just as an explanation of why you'll be communicating through legal counsel from now on." It was the calmest, most devastating strategy I'd ever heard. When the lien hit the county records, everything exploded exactly the way Naomi predicted. Mark called first, leaving a string of furious voicemails. "Emma, what the hell are you doing? This is childish. You're blowing up the entire estate over pocket change." Pocket change. They really thought $52,000 meant nothing because it came from me. By the end of the week, Naomi received a formal letter from Mark requesting we remove the lien. Her response was one sentence: "We will consider removing it when the full amount owed has been paid." Then came Chloe's birthday. I wasn't invited, of course, but my dad asked me privately to come by, just for a few minutes. He didn't know the truth yet. He just said, "It would mean something to me if you were there." So I went. The living room was filled with relatives, laughter, and the kind of artificial warmth that comes from people pretending everything is fine. Chloe stood by the cake, glowing in a way that made me realize she truly believed she'd already won. Then I set my tablet on the dining table and hit play. First the emails, then the bank transfer, then the transcript of my mother saying, "Once she pays off the remodel, we're cutting her out for good." The room went silent so fast it felt like the air had been vacuumed out. My mother's face drained of color. Chloe stuttered through excuses. Mark stepped forward, trying to speak over everyone, but the voices from the transcript drowned him out. And in the middle of it all, my father, quiet, gentle, loyal Henry, picked up the tablet with shaking hands. He didn't say a word, didn't look at anyone. He just turned and walked out of the house, the truth glowing on the screen he carried. Watching him leave felt like watching the last beam of a collapsing house give way. Except this time, I wasn't the one buried under the rubble. I was the one who had finally stepped outside. When the truth finally detonated inside our family, it didn't just break things apart, it rearranged everything. The morning after Chloe's birthday disaster, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls from my mother, half-written texts from Chloe, a formal email from Mark, now suddenly very polite, reminding me to please consider the broader implications for the family estate. But the one call I answered was from my father. His voice was low, exhausted. "Emma, I filed the papers." Those 4 words carried 25 years of disappointment, betrayal, and quiet endurance. I closed my eyes and breathed in slowly. "I'm proud of you, Dad." He exhaled like he'd been underwater for years. "I used the evidence you gave me. All of it. The lawyer said it's enough to protect my share of the assets." A pause. "I wish I'd seen it sooner." "You see it now," I told him. And that was enough. By the end of the week, everything began to unravel publicly. The secret loan my mother took out, using assets she didn't legally control, was frozen by the bank pending investigation. Crestline Partners was flagged for suspicious activity, and when my mother tried to contact the consultant, the number was disconnected. She lost access to their joint funds once Dad's injunction went through. Chloe didn't fare much better. With the lien locking the house and the estate in dispute, she suddenly couldn't lean on Mark the way she always had. His firm launched an internal ethics review over his involvement in manipulating a family estate while being married to a beneficiary. Word around town spread faster than wildfire. The man who once strutted around like he owned Riverton now avoided the grocery store. Meanwhile, my mother kept leaving me voicemails dripping with false remorse. "Emma, we can fix this. You misunderstood. You're blowing things out of proportion. Families shouldn't treat each other like enemies. Bah." I deleted every message. I wasn't her enemy. I just wasn't her victim anymore. While they scrambled, I went back to my life. Really went back. For the first time in years, work wasn't an escape. It was mine. I poured everything into Steel Oak. Within a month, I landed 2 new renovation contracts through word of mouth alone. Clients liked my honesty, my directness. Maybe pain sharpens those qualities in a way nothing else can. Then I did something that surprised even me. I bought a tiny, run-down cottage on the edge of Riverton. The paint was peeling, the floor sagged, and the wiring looked like it was installed during the Civil War. It was perfect. Because for once, I wasn't fixing a home for someone else. I was building something for me. My dad came by every Sunday morning with pastries from the cafe. He'd sit on an overturned paint bucket while I sanded cabinets or tore out drywall. No talk about my mother, no talk about Chloe, just easy things. You ever switch to a lighter roast? You think this wall is load-bearing? You eating enough, kiddo? Sometimes healing doesn't come in grand gestures. It comes in coffee cups, sawdust, and the steady presence of someone who finally chooses you. One afternoon, as I stepped back to admire the first fully refinished room in my new place, I realized something with a clarity that felt almost peaceful. My family hadn't fallen apart. It had finally revealed what was real and what was worth rebuilding. 30 days passed faster than I expected. Maybe chaos has a way of accelerating time, or maybe watching people scramble to undo the damage they created makes everything feel like it's spinning twice as fast. Either way, the deadline for the lien arrived, and Chloe finally cracked under the pressure. She showed up at Naomi's office, looking like someone had drained all the color out of her life. Her voice shook when she said, "We have the money, all 62,000. Just, please sign the release." I didn't say a word. I let Naomi handle the paperwork, because by then I understood something important. Closure isn't something you get from a conversation or an apology. It's something you build yourself. Naomi slid the documents toward me. "Here's the final agreement. Payment in full, no non-disclosure clause, and the only mutual term is that neither side will publicly disparage the other." Chloe swallowed hard. "You really won't sign an NDA?" I looked her in the eye. I never needed silence. I just needed my money back. For the first time in months, I watched her understand what that meant. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't about humiliating her. It was about correcting a debt, one she and my mother had hoped would disappear forever. I signed. She signed. The lien was lifted. And that was that. Across town, the divorce hearing wrapped even more brutally. With the evidence I'd provided, my father secured full legal control of the house and the marital assets. When he walked out of the courthouse, he looked tired, but not defeated. Just lighter. He sold the house 2 weeks later, the place I once climbed ladders to decorate, the place I spent nights rewiring and sanding floors and replacing everything broken, the place they planned to use as a weapon against me. Gone. Sold. Closed. Sometimes freedom doesn't come from what you gain, but from what you finally let go. My own life clicked into place quietly. Steel Oak picked up more contracts than I could handle, and I moved into my new office. Small, bright, smelling like fresh paint and cedar. On the first morning, I stood by the window holding my first official contract since everything collapsed. My name on the header, my terms, my work, my future. A drill buzzed in the background as my crew started on a new project, and the sound hit me like a heartbeat returning to rhythm. That's when it sank in. Life collapses like old drywall, but if you know how to rebuild from the studs up, you rise stronger than before. That Christmas, I climbed a ladder again, but this time outside my own little cottage. No audience, no pretending, no performing for people who only saw what they could take. I plugged in a single strand of warm lights, simple, soft, mine. And when the house lit up, steady, glowing, imperfect but bright, I realized I was finally home. If you've listened to this story from beginning to end, did it move you the way it moved me to live it? Would you like me to create more stories about family, betrayal, and finding yourself again? Comment your thoughts below, tell me if you enjoyed it, and let me know what country you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next story shared by another woman, reclaiming her voice.